Hello students, now we are going to take the glandular tissue, epithelial tissue we were talking about. In the animal tissues, you know there are epithelial tissues. So the epithelial tissues were of two types. You must have seen the previous lecture in which it was discussed that there is a covering type of epithelial tissue and a glandular type of epithelial tissue. Now we are going to see what this glandular epithelial tissue is all about. It plays a very vital role in our body, in any animal's body, because it is responsible for secretion. When I say the word gland, that means it is going to do some or other secretion which is going to play an important role in body functions. So these glandular epithelium, wherever they would be present, they would produce the fluid secretions which would be necessary for the organism. Why they are necessary? Because they not only produce the secretions which are rich in hormones, they have intracellular molecules which synthesize basic proteins, lipids, carbohydrates. I would give example in each case, like you have insulin. It is produced by the glandular cells. It is a protein based intracellular molecule. Then we have lipids. You must have heard about the adrenal gland secretions that are corticoids. They are secreted by the glandular cells and are lipid molecules basically. And then we have carbohydrates and protein derivatives that are present in our salivary glands. So you see that the glandular epithelium, because of its secretions, have a very specific role to play in the entire physiology of an animal. Now, as it is the tissue, it is going to be formed of few cells. What are these epithelial tissue formed of? They are formed of the cells which are either going to be columnar or they are going to be cuboidal. Epithelial cells, as we have discussed, the epithelial tissue is having different types of cells. If you might remember, in the covering epithelium we had talked about that there are squamous type of epithelium, there is cuboidal epithelium, there is columnar epithelium. So when we talk about these specialized glandular epithelial tissue, it is the columnar cells and the cuboidal cells which form the glandular epithelium. Now, when we talk about glandular epithelium, it further has different classifications. What are the types of the glandular epithelium on the basis of cellular composition? First is the unicellular glandular epithelium. Please pay attention that a single cell would be giving secretions which would be useful for various physiological functions. As you might have heard that inside our stomach there are cells which secrete digestive juices or the gastric juices. Those are single cells and their secretion is thrown into the intestine, or their secretion is thrown into our alimentary canal basically. So those type of cells are known as unicellular glandular epithelial cells and they form the glands. They are unicellular. Second type is multicellular. That means few cells would come together and they would pour in their secretion somewhere, and that somewhere is duct in biological terms, that the gland is going to have either the ducts or the gland would throw the entire secretion into the bloodstream. On that basis, when we talk about multicellularity, we are going to have a structure, a basic structure according to which those epithelial tissue would be arranged, and on that basis whether the arrangement is pouring the secretion directly into the bloodstream or it is pouring the secretion into a duct, we have further classifications. Now you need to see that on the basis of pouring of secretions which are synthesized by the cells of glandular epithelium, how that secretion is thrown inside the body, on that basis we have further classifications. Now we need to pay attention that when we talk about endocrine glands, you might have heard we have pituitary gland, we have pineal gland, then there is adrenal gland. All these glands are endocrine glands. When I talk about endocrine glands, that means these glands will not have ducts. Their pouring would be given out directly into the bloodstream, from where the bloodstream would take that hormone and take it to the desired place or the target cell as we call it. Then there is exocrine gland. These glands have ducts. So most basic classification that we deal with in daily basis is whether the gland is endocrine or the exocrine gland. Exocrine gland would have a duct, a proper duct, and endocrine gland will not have a duct. Now please understand that the exocrine gland is further of two types. Supposedly you have lining of cells which throw their secretion into a tubule. I hope I am making my point clear over here that various cells, all of them are secretory because they are part of glandular epithelium, and here there is a tubule. Over here the secretions are being thrown, and this part where the secretions are being thrown and given out, that part is known as tubule. So when all the cells are arranged in this pattern and there is a single tubule from where the excretion would go out, that gland is known as simple exocrine gland. Again, I would quote the example of goblet cells only. Then there is condition of compound exocrine glands. Over here, there would be a tubule. These are the cells supposedly. They would open up into acinus. Okay. So acinus, and then there would be a tubule, and there would be many tubules like this. So somehow this is a complex structure from where there are many tubules and further they are joining, as in the case of mammary glands you might have observed. So these are tubules into which the secretion is thrown, and over there would be a common duct from where the excretion would be thrown out. So you get to know that simple would have a single tubule, and in compound exocrine glands there would be many tubules which would further combine to form a common duct. Then we have mixed type of glands. Now these three are basically one type of classification. Please pay attention. I talked about endocrine gland, I talked about exocrine gland. This was ductless, this is having ducts where the duct could be a simple one or a complex one. And then I talk about mixed gland, that it would be a gland or an organ or a secretory part which would have some part that will give it secretion directly into the bloodstream, and some part which would have ducts. And which example strikes my mind over here is the simplest one, that is pancreas. Now try to recall your knowledge from the digestive system that pancreas have insulin and glucagon which are thrown into the bloodstream. At the same time they have pancreatic juice which is thrown into the duodenum through hepatopancreatic duct. If you are not able to recall those things, doesn't matter. All you need to remember is that certain part of pancreas has cells which throw their secretion directly into the bloodstream, while there are certain cells in the pancreas which form the digestive juices which are thrown into the alimentary canal through a proper channel of ducts. That is why it comes under mixed glands. Then there are another type, merocrine, apocrine and holocrine. There is a similar pattern as you can see in the naming also. Merocrine glands are those glands in which the cell does not get consumed after the secretion is given, as in the case of pancreas. Here also I give the example of pancreas, but you can see in this classification we are not paying attention to whether the gland is having ducts or not. We are paying attention to whether the cells which are forming the secretions are getting consumed, are not getting consumed. So in the case of merocrine glands, the secretion is given out from the cells, epithelial cells of course, by the process of exocytosis. So one thing you need to remember, whenever you are talking about merocrine glands, we are going to talk about exocytosis. That means the cell is throwing out its excretion and it is not getting consumed. In terms of apocrine gland, I would use the example of mammary glands. Mammary glands are those type of glands in which the complete cytoplasm is not used up. It is the apical part of the cytoplasm which is given out as secretion, as in the case of milk given by the mother who is nursing her child. Then is the case of holocrine glands. Holocrine gland is the best example is the sebaceous gland. You get pimples on your face and acne, that is because of the holocrine glands, which are sebaceous gland, various oil glands present in our skin. In holocrine gland, entire cell is consumed along with the secretion. So let us revise this entire thing what we have talked about till now, that there are two types of epithelium. As we pay attention to glandular epithelium, we have the cellular features where we have The cells would be columnar or cuboidal. Their secretions would be fluid, but they would not be like blood. They would have intracellular molecules which would be synthesized along with the secretions, and there would be two types of these glandular epithelium. One would be unicellular and other would be multicellular. In case of multicellular, mostly we have further classifications which is made on the basis of the pouring of secretions, how they are poured. If they are poured with ducts, then we have these three types. If they are poured through single cell and how the cells act after pouring the secretion, then we have these three classifications. So you need to learn each example of these. Endocrine glands is entire system in our body, hormonal system. Exocrine glands play an important role in our digestion. Mixed gland, of course, they would be present in both the cases, and these glands are an important part of our body's physiology, and all this is an important epithelial tissue. Thank you.